needed that. This thing was hyped up like crazy about, I don't know, last year now. It's been a while. And I finally got my hands on it. I wanted to talk generally about the Black Bay Chrono line, the movement inside, some of the things I like and some of the things that I don't like. Now, I love doing Tudor reviews because I was driving the other day down the road and I saw 2 Tudor billboards for my local authorized dealer, which both used to be Rolex billboards that now are Tudor billboards. One was promoting the Black Bay 58 and one was promoting the Black Bay Pro. And I pointed out, and I'm like, hey, do you remember that one broke on me? That's a long story. But in general, I love Tudor. I think most young men, and women, but to be frank, most of this hobby is men that are obsessed with it, love Tudor watches. They're a great value for what you get because they're all automated in how they're produced. They can get the same sort of quality that you're going to find out of some of these higher end brands, including Omega, but for less money. And so people are loving that. And obviously the Rolex name behind the brand adds a lot. I really liked Tudor since their resurgence in the United States. And this Tudor Chrono has been one of the watches that people have gone crazy about. I feel like a little less so now. You can typically find them for less money than they used to ask. I think these were like $6,000 on eBay last year. So crazy stuff. The watch itself, the specs are on the screen. You know, I typically don't go through the specs too much. You guys know that about me. But the watch is 41 millimeters in diameter and it's pretty thick. I mean, but it's a chronograph. It's gonna be thick. All chronographs are thick. I have a Navitimer that's thick. I've had a lot of other ones. You know, the difference typically is if it's an automatic, it adds a lot of extra thickness to it. And this is an automatic chronograph. Now, overall look and feel, the watch has a lot of elements that I like. I love the Panda style. I love the tachometer on the outside, the classic chronograph elements, the dual subdials there in the center. The date at the 6 o'clock, I feel like is actually a nice symmetrical placement of it. And then outside of that, you know, the screw down pushers give you a nice look. The fact that it's got 200 meters water resistance on a chronograph is awesome. If you're a chrono guy, like I think I am, that tends to be something that I really, really like looking at and enjoy wearing. I have basically not put my Navitimer down. Someone has to pry it off my wrist and I had to take it off in order to wear this for a little while. I think it's got, you know, a lot of the things that make the Daytona, which is, I think, what we're ignoring, a very successful watch. It's a classic design through the Daytona. That is a watch that people flock to, people like a lot. And this is a similar looking watch because that's what Tudor does. They take a Rolex design element or sometimes an old Tudor design element, which is typically obviously Rolex derived, and they kind of turn it a little bit and make it a little bit more Tudor. In this case with the snowflake hands and with the fact that it's 2 subdials versus 3 subdials, and the case style with the slab side, it's added its Tudor element. And that's what people typically like. But obviously we have to understand that the feeling here, or the centric design element, is the fact that it's a Panda style with a black exterior bezel and 2 subdials in the center, or black subdials in the center on a white background. Most people are going to think of the Daytona. Speedmasters have looked like this. There are many different watches. Universal Genève also had watches that look just like this. This is just the chrono style. When you're going to go with white and black, they tend to look like this, or you do the reverse, the opposite direction, with black bezel, black dial, and white subdials, which is kind of how the Navitimer looks, with the exception of the slide rule bezel. So obviously it's going to have elements that people are going to really enjoy, and it's going to have the Tudor name, and it's going to come at a good price. And I think those are the positives. Those are the things that people are going to flock to the watch in order to get, especially the price point. You know, inside here is a B01 movement, essentially. Kenissi has shared out movements to different brands. Norqain, obviously Breitling's, their date or 3-hander watches typically are going to be using a Kenissi or a Tudor movement. And the Breitling chronograph in that swap, when they swap movement designs and architectures, Breitling gave them the B01 movement, which is a vertical clutch chronograph. Now, I'm not going to go too much in depth on the differences between these, but essentially a horizontal clutch has two wheels that get shoved together. And what ends up happening is that wheel that you've got here on this side will wear away. Both of them, frankly, will wear away. And because they're forced into one another, they're constantly pushing against one another, which causes them to wear if you leave the chronograph running for a long period of time. A vertical chronograph is like a gear being dropped down into place. It's not entirely how it works, but it's like a gear being dropped down in place. When it gets dropped in place, it runs. When it's lifted out of place, it doesn't run. And so because of the fact that it's just dropping into place, there isn't, that force that's pushing those gears together that's making it run. And so that's why, like this one, I accidentally left running since yesterday. It makes no difference. It won't overwear the watch. A vertical clutch chronograph is fantastic for that reason. And that's why, like, the B01 movements and all these Breitling watches is commanding such a high dollar value, because a vertical clutch chronograph is typically going to be a expensive watch. Chronographs in general are expensive. Vertical clutch chronographs are obviously an extra level up. Now, Tudor being Tudor, priced this very reasonably. Again, it is what we expect. They have a reasonable price. And so you're getting that B01 movement for a fraction of the price, plus a design element of a Rolex with the sort of reliability that we tend to see out of Tudor. Obviously, there are a few exceptions of things that have happened, but that's manufacturing anything. You have mistakes that happen. So the point is that positives, great things, reasons why people loved it: design, look, feel, wearability. It does not wear too big. It doesn't wear too fat or too large. I really, frankly, like how it fits on my wrist. I typically like smaller watches, but I think I've been starting to get into more larger watches because it's been fun. So it doesn't feel too thick or too tubby. The wear is, it's fine. Sure, it is a fat watch, but what do you expect? That's kind of what you get for a thick Tudor. It's going to be slab-sided. But it doesn't wear too big, especially not on the bracelet. I've noticed that with Tudors, when I take the bracelet off and I put it on a strap, it tends to wear a lot better. This originally came on this strap right here. It's like a suede strap with a deploying clasp. You have to feed the strap through the loop as you then close it. That's Tudor's deployant style. It's okay. I don't really like the fact that I have to feed the strap through, but the strap itself feels nice, very smooth, very supple. Obviously the issue here is just wearability, weathering in terms of rain, because this isn't just a dressy watch. For a guy like me, I would want to sweat in it a lot. And so I switched over. This is an Artem strap. I actually reached out to them because I said I loved their straps so much on the last run that can they send me some more? So they sent me a couple of these 22 millimeters, one for my Navitimer in green, this one here in blue, and then one of their new straps as well in 20 millimeters, which I'll go over in a different review. Switched it over to this because I sweat a lot and these give me a nice, elegant balance. So love that. They don't technically sponsor anything. I just say, hey, can you send me some straps? They send me some straps. If I like them, I talk about them. I've liked them so much that I asked them to send me more. So they tend to be the de facto strap on all my watches just because I like them and they fit my lifestyle. Quick note to interrupt. I just wanted to note, I think about 85% of you guys are not subscribed that are watching this. Please do that. It's super helpful. It allows me to have access to more things, to talk about more things. And you can ignore them in your subscribe page. But if you're already watching regularly, which most of you are, then just hit that subscribe button. Super helpful to me. Help grow this whole thing I've been doing for almost about 2 years now. It'd be really nice. So appreciate it. Point is that when you fit it on a fabric strap or a strap in general, the watch wears, I feel like, a lot better. It sits down closer to the wrist. It feels a lot more snug. It doesn't feel super heavy. These bracelets on these Tudors, because they're milled out of solid steel, are really heavy. And because they're really heavy, you end up with a watch that sometimes wants to shift really heavily on your wrist. And I've had that happen before. Or when you put your hand down, because it's so heavy, it clanks, like it shoves down into the top of your wrist here. And I've had that happen where, like, my wrist hand, I don't know, it's at that joint there, starts to hurt because the crown has been hitting it every time I've moved my hand and reached somewhere. It's been hitting it because there's too much weight on it plus the bracelet. So it on a strap, fantastic, good wearability. I haven't tried it on the bracelet because I don't have the bracelet. So just give you a general idea there. Now, obviously that leads into some of the negatives or some of the things that I don't like about the watch, because obviously there are going to be some. This is me, this is my channel, this is what I do. There's a reason why I didn't pick it up for a year. And the reason why is because from a design element. Now, there are really two main reasons. One is the fact that I don't like the look of the slab side. It doesn't feel very refined. And I know that if I got this, I would consider selling it because I would want something else. I like chronographs a lot, but I tend to like more subtle looking chronographs. This is definitely more of a sportsman's chronograph. Like, you really want it to be a louder piece of your attire. Now, chronographs in general aren't the quietest, but you get my point. It's just a bigger watch. It's a fatter watch. And that fatter part is something that I don't like that much. I would prefer it to kind of have all of those extra thicknesses built into tapers in the case, and in the overall, even just maybe the bezel flaring down a little bit more, something to make it so that the whole watch itself doesn't look so fat. It doesn't look overly fat, you know, I could deal with it, but it's not my preference. And so that's why I know I would never have kept it in my collection. The other element is something that I've talked about in other Tudor watches, and that's the fact that it's this mix between snowflake hands and circular indices, circular and triangle indices. Geometrically, for whatever reason, it just doesn't look right to me. It looks off. Now, I wore this for about a week straight, and the first 2 days it looked off. Like, I didn't like it at all. I really didn't like how those two shapes kind of collided together with all the extra busyness. On a Black Bay 58, I think it looks nice. Not my favorite, but it looks nice. On this one, it looked too busy and they didn't look like they fit at all with the overall look of the dial. After about day 4, kind of used to it, I was like, it looks okay. By day 6, I thought, it's just there. You know, who cares about the circular indices? But then I pulled out my Navitimer and I looked at it next to it. I cared again. You know, it's not ugly. It's just not my favorite. And that's personal preference. That's part of this watch channel. I have a personal preference. I think, again, on the Black Bay 58, even the Black Bay Pro, like, the circular indices look like they kind of match the overall watch. I think because of the extra busyness, the circular indices look even more noticeable. And so I like them even less than I did on the other watches. Just my thought, you know, a one man's opinion. Again, still a beautiful looking watch, just not my favorite on the circular indices. I said 2 points, but I meant 3. The third point is the screw down pushers. From a utility standpoint, fantastic. Love it, makes sense. I get it. You want to be able to activate it and, you know, or leave it closed off so that you have better water resistance. All that makes sense. First off, 200 meters also is absurd. For most watches, there are many divers that dive with a 50-meter water-resistant watch or a 100-meter water-resistant watch, depending on how deep they're going to go. 200 is aggressive and unnecessary. But let's say you've got this and you want to dive with it, you can. That's cool. I never used this chronograph throughout the week that I had it, unlike my Navitimer, which I use the chronograph pretty often, and the Speedmaster before it, I use the chronograph relatively often because I time things in my warehouse. I'm operations guy. That's what I do for my company. And so I time things every so often. Attack time, how long it takes for us to do this process. This is so cumbersome to unscrew both top and bottom pushers before you use anything that I feel like the chronograph feature is basically just like a nice to have, like a cool looking aspect. It's more about how the overall watch looks rather than the overall function, if that makes sense. I would prefer lower water resistance, even if it's 50 meters or 100 meters, without the screw down crown, without the screw down pushers, I mean to say. The screw down crown is fine. You set the time once, but the screw down pushers, I like it, the look of it, but I hate the utility. I hate the use case. I just never used them. So I'm selling this. This is on my website. I'm trying to help, fund this whole thing. So what I'm trying to do is buy watches so that way no one sponsors me or makes me have to say nice things. I can buy them and then I can resell them on my website. It avoids the eBay fees and whatnot. And then people can obviously get them from there. I'm going to try to sell them at the exact cost I buy them for. So I'll try and buy them reasonably so that you guys get a decent deal as well. Obviously, if you all say, hey, that's absurd, I'm not paying this, then I'll sell it at a slightly discounted rate. But I'm trying to keep this, channel going. And the best way to do that is to buy in watches and then sell them. So let me know what you guys think about the Tudor Black Bay Chrono. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.